It started on a night that didn't feel wrong, at least not at first. The kind of night where everything is too quiet, where the world feels paused, like something is holding its breath. I remember sitting in my living room, the soft hum of the heater in the background, scrolling through my phone without really focusing on anything. It was almost 3 a.m. I should have been asleep, but for some reason, I couldn't shake this strange feeling that something was a little off. Not dangerous, not scary, just off. Like the air around me had changed without asking permission. Outside, the street was empty. No cars, no people, not even the usual neighborhood dog barking in the distance. Just silence, stretched thin over the night like a sheet of glass. And then the sound came. 3 slow knocks, not loud, not rushed, almost polite. But in the middle of the night, at 3 a.m., the sound felt completely wrong. I froze. I didn't even breathe for a second. I remember looking at my hallway, the front door barely visible in the dark. I thought maybe I imagined it. Maybe it was something falling outside. Maybe a branch hit the door. I tried to convince myself of anything that made sense. Then it happened again. 3 knocks. Slower this time, like whoever was outside wanted me to know they weren't in a hurry. My phone nearly slipped out of my hand. I kept trying to tell myself that maybe a neighbor needed help. Maybe someone was lost, but even then, who knocks softly at 3 a.m.? Who stands outside in the freezing dark waiting for a stranger to answer? I wasn't brave, but I wasn't stupid either. I stayed quiet, listening carefully, hoping the sound would stop, and whoever it was would just leave. But the silence that followed was worse. I could hear my heartbeat more than anything else. I stared at the door from a distance, waiting, trying not to move, trying not to make a sound. I didn't want whoever it was to know I was awake. When the knocks didn't continue, I should have felt relieved, but the silence didn't feel natural. It felt heavy, like someone was standing there, waiting, listening, like they knew I was frozen on the other side of the wall. After a few minutes that felt like a lifetime, curiosity mixed with fear pushed me closer to the door. Not enough to open it, not even enough to speak, just close enough to look through the peephole. But I didn't see anything. The porch light was on. The front mat was there. The quiet street behind it looked exactly the same as it always did. But there was no one standing outside. Not a shadow, not a silhouette, nothing. I should have walked away right then, closed the hallway light, gone back to the living room, pretended it didn't happen. But there was this strange pressure in my chest, like something was telling me to look again, to be absolutely sure. So I leaned in closer, and for a split second, as I shifted my weight, I thought I saw movement. Not something obvious, not a person, just a shift in the darkness, a flicker, something small and quick, disappearing at the edge of my vision. I blinked hard, thinking my eyes were just playing tricks on me. Maybe I was tired. Maybe it was random shadows mixing with the porch light. I told myself that I wanted to believe it. But just when I started to pull away from the door, something happened that made every hair on my body stand on end. The door handle moved, not violently, not like someone was trying to break in. It moved slowly, a gentle twist, like someone was quietly checking if it was unlocked. I stepped back instantly, my breath catching in my throat. I didn't make a sound. I didn't dare. My eyes stayed locked on the handle, watching it shift a tiny bit, then stop again. And then silence. No footsteps walking away. No whisper of movement. Just the cold air pressing against the door from the outside. I finally grabbed my phone, thinking I should call someone. Anyone. But before I could unlock the screen, a message popped up. An alert from my smart door camera. Motion detected. Front door. My heart sank. I opened the live feed with shaking fingers. The camera showed the porch, the door, the empty street. No person, no movement, nothing at all. And yet, the timestamp matched exactly when the handle moved. I stared at the empty porch until my eyes blurred, and that's when I noticed something I still can't explain. Something I wish I had never seen. Near the edge of the screen, right next to the porch light, a shadow moved. Not shaped like a person. Not shaped like anything I can describe without questioning myself. It slid out of the camera's frame in one smooth motion, too fast to understand, too quiet to hear. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. Whoever or whatever knocked on my door didn't want to be seen, and it wasn't gone. It was still out there, somewhere just beyond the light, still watching, still waiting. And that was only the beginning of that night. For a long moment, I didn't move. I just stood there, in the dim hallway with the cold glow of my phone lighting my hand, staring at that motion alert, like it was some kind of warning I wasn't ready to face. My mind kept going back to the way that shadow moved. Too smooth, too fast, too deliberate. It didn't match anything I could explain. And the strangest part was how quiet everything outside had become again. As if the whole night was holding itself still, waiting for me to take the next step. I thought about calling someone, but then I remembered what the police told me last time I reported something strange. If no one's there, there's nothing we can do. I didn't want to hear that again. Not tonight. Not when I knew something had touched my door. Something had twisted the handle. Something had been standing inches from where I was now. I didn't go back to the people. I couldn't. Instead, I backed away slowly and turned on more lights, hoping brightness would somehow make me feel safer. It didn't. Every shadow in the room felt different now. Too deep, too heavy, like something might be hiding in the darker corners. I sat on my couch, trying to calm myself down, telling myself this night would pass. That maybe there was some logical explanation I just hadn't thought of yet. But the more I tried to convince myself, the more that uneasy feeling grew. The kind that tells you something isn't over yet. About 15 minutes later, the air inside the house shifted again. Not a real sound, not footsteps, not a knock, just a faint pressure change that made the hairs on my neck rise. I didn't want to look, but my eyes drifted to the hallway anyway, toward the shadowy outline of the front door. And that's when my phone buzzed again. Another motion alert. Except this time, instead of front door, it said something that made my stomach drop. Camera offline. It had never done that before. Not once. It was hardwired, stable, always connected. And now, suddenly, at that exact moment, the camera went dark. My heart hammered in my chest. I opened the app again. Nothing. I refreshed it. Still nothing. I tried switching to the porch light control. Offline too, as if something had cut the power right where it mattered most. I didn't go near the door. I didn't even think about it. Instead, I stayed frozen on the couch, watching the shadows, listening for anything that might tell me what was happening outside. It took maybe 5 or 10 minutes before something finally broke the silence. A faint scrape, soft, slow, like something brushing against the outer wall of the house, sliding along the siding. It traveled from the left side of the door, across the front, and then toward the right. Every inch of it felt like someone, or something, was tracing the outline of my house, feeling the structure, learning it. I sat there, gripping my phone so tightly, my hand went numb. And then it stopped. Just like that. No fading footsteps, no retreat, just sudden silence, as if whatever was out there had made a decision. I waited. Minutes passed, maybe more. Time didn't feel real anymore. Eventually, I worked up the courage to check the window, but very carefully, staying low, peeking from a distance so whatever was outside couldn't spot me easily. The street was empty. The yard was still. The camera light wasn't glowing. Nothing seemed wrong, but nothing felt right either. After a long while, I finally saw the camera reconnect. The app lit up again with its normal green status. I held my breath and checked the feed. The porch looked completely normal, but something on the image made my chest tighten. Near the very edge of the camera's frame, on the far side of the porch, something faint was visible on the concrete. Maybe dust, maybe dirt, but the shape was too deliberate, too clear. It looked like a footprint, not a shoe print, not bare human feet either. Something in between, long, narrow, almost distorted. I stared at it until I couldn't convince myself it was nothing. I knew what I saw, even if I didn't want to believe it. And I knew, deep down, that whatever had stood at my door wasn't something that belonged outside any normal house at 3 a.m. I didn't sleep that night. I waited until the sun came up, and even then, I walked outside with shaking steps. I needed to see for myself. When I reached the porch, the print was gone. Completely gone. Like it had never been there. No dirt, no smudge, not even dust disturbed. As if the camera had captured something the physical world refused to show. I checked the door handle next. Cold. Colder than the morning air. Like someone had held it for far too long. But no marks. No scratches. Nothing obvious. My neighbors didn't see anything. No cars. No people. No late-night movement at all. The whole street had slept through the night like nothing had happened. For a moment, I wondered if I had imagined the whole thing. But when I checked the phone logs again, the motion alert was still there. The timestamp matched the exact minute the handle moved. The camera offline alert was still recorded too. And then, the worst part, the shadow. The tiny flicker at the edge of the screen. The movement too fast to understand. That wasn't my imagination. That was real. And no matter how much I tried to explain it away, nothing fit. Not an animal, not a person, not anything I had ever known. That day, I did something I never thought I would. I replaced the locks, added more lights, and installed new cameras. People told me I was overreacting, that nothing happened, that maybe it was just paranoia from lack of sleep. But here's the thing. Something did happen. Maybe it wasn't a person. Maybe it wasn't something I can name. Maybe it wasn't meant to be understood. But something stood at my door that night. Something knocked. Something twisted the handle. Something that didn't want to be seen on camera. And still showed up anyway. Since then, no more knocks, no more alerts, no more shadows. But sometimes, late at night, when the street outside goes quiet and the house feels too still, I get that same strange feeling in my chest. That quiet crawling sense that something is standing just beyond the light. Not close enough to touch. Not close enough to hear. Just watching. I don't know what it wanted. I don't know if it will ever come back. But I do know one thing. Every night since then, before I go to bed, I lock the door twice. Not because I think it will keep anything out, but because it reminds me of something important, something that changed the way I see the world. Sometimes, the things we fear aren't inside our homes. Sometimes, they're standing right outside, where we least expect them. And sometimes, they knock, even when no one is supposed to be there.